happy holidays, and thanks for joining us for Episode 7 of the Benton County Public Podcast. This podcast was created to keep you informed of what's happening in Benton County, Oregon, and today's episode is our year-end episode of 2023. My name is Dan Crall. I'm the host and producer of the Benton County Public Podcast. Benton County is a great place to live and work. If you're interested in learning about jobs with Benton County, you can visit co.benton.or.us and click on Careers. On today's episode, we're going to visit the Benton County Fairgrounds, where the Pastega Christmas Lights Display is going on through the 1st of January. And we'll talk with Ken Pastega, who is now 77 years old, and in his last year of organizing this long-time tradition, started by his parents back in 1981. We'll also catch up with Cindy DeAngelilo, RN, who is a public health nurse and the Immunization Program Coordinator for Benton County Health Department. We'll conclude the episode with a look ahead to events in Benton County, and we'll hear some holiday tunes from local musicians. Thanks for tuning in to Episode 7 of the Benton County Public Podcast. You're listening to the Benton County Public Podcast. This is Dan Crall, and I am recording this on a Friday evening. It's dark out, and there is a holiday lights display just to my left here at the Benton County Fairgrounds in this open area, where the last time I remember being here was for the county fair, not far from the rodeo grounds and the pony shed. And I'm standing here with Tommy Douglas, who is the Director of Natural Areas, Parks, and Events, also known as NAPE. How's it going?
It's going awesome. This is the most wonderful time of the year.
And we can hear in the background holiday music, and we are just a few feet away from Ken Pastega, who has put on this holiday lights display effort for some time.
Yes, and actually it started, years and years ago. Ken can tell you, the full history. But it's been here at the fairgrounds for over a dozen years, and we've loved having the show here. It's an awesome holiday tradition, frankly, for our staff. And actually, just before you got here, I gave Ken a key to the fairgrounds, an honorary element, of course.
Will it actually get him in?
Yes, actually, yes. If you
so he could come at 4 a.m.
Yeah, you can show up at 4 a.m. It's obviously ceremonial, but, we really wanted to just have some sort of special way to thank him and his family for all they've done. I mean, he does all of this at his own expense. I mean, he brings in dozens of volunteers, hundreds of hours. It's just this awesome, awesome community gift. Like, he's our own Santa. But anyway, so we gave him the key as a thank you. And yeah, we're just here tonight kind of kicking things off, and it is cold and awesome and twinkly, and everyone seems really happy.
Now, for those who are listening who can't see what we see before us, why don't you describe this holiday lights display that is here at the fairgrounds, as you said, for now over a dozen years?
This light show has a long history, right? And it used to be it originated up at the old Pastega Pepsi bottling plant.
Right.
They had a big, long, dramatic driveway, right, which was perfect for setting up this awesome light display. Times change, things change, people have moved around. And we've had different, routes here at the fairgrounds of how cars have driven through the area. And as buildings in the fairgrounds have changed, and we added the solar building and added walls to it, all of a sudden it had walls and we could put lights up on them. So it's evolved as the fairgrounds have evolved, and it's been really fun to have those folks here every year. And Ken's let us know that this is the last year of the light show. I mean, I think they're ready to hang up their lights and let some new traditions take their place. So we just, wanted to come out tonight, give him the key, and thank him for all this awesome community volunteerism and sponsorship of, this is just, who does this, right? What kind of communities have people who give this kind of a gift to their entire community for free? So,
well, oftentimes it is a special philanthropist or a volunteer or someone with a given passion that will put something like this on, and then it's just very lucky that that person would hang around and keep the tradition going. And, of course, Ken Pastega's parents started this 1981, back when Mario was the owner of the Pepsi bottling plant, and his wife had a passion for creating a lot of these wooden-cut holiday decorations, which have changed over the years, but they put this on as a husband-wife team effort, and of course things just change over time, and it really just depends on volunteers and the right energy and passion to show up.
It really does. It really does. And these folks give up their entire holiday season. You know, it's like folks that work in restaurants over the holidays, or actors who are in A Christmas Carol. Like, there are a lot of people who just work behind the scenes making sure our holidays are awesome. And so, you know, we will miss the lights, but I think it's about time Ken and his family and friends and volunteers get to, you know, hang out the day after Thanksgiving like the rest of us with our soft pants on and eat pie. I think they have earned that privilege over these many years. And, you know, the rest of us will pick it up and create some new holiday traditions.
As we are standing here, there are vehicles driving past through this holiday light display, which has colorful lights. We also have images of
beloved characters, there's holiday music playing, and, you know, it's just this fun, funky, awesome local tradition. You know, when I started this job, it was one of the things that folks told me about during my interview process, because I was trying to get an idea of what's this community like what do we do, what are holidays like, you know, and they were like, you won't believe what we do. You know, we had this awesome guy, Ken Pastega, whose family has created this tradition, and it was one of the things that I was like, this place is special, I think I want to go work there. I mean, really, it really was one of the many things that I was like, this is kind of an extraordinary community. But yeah, I started May 1st, so this is my first holiday season.
May 1st of 2023.
Yeah, of 2023, yeah.
We are speaking with Tommy Douglas, who is the Director of Natural Areas, Parks, and Events for Benton County. We are here at the Benton County Fairgrounds. As we record this, it is Friday, the day after Thanksgiving of 2023. And traditionally, is this when the holiday lights display starts up, when folks start driving through the day after Thanksgiving?
That's right. The folks start driving through. It starts to get, you know, twilight the day after Thanksgiving. But these volunteers have been here for at least 3 or 4 weeks setting up. I mean, it's a process that takes weeks and weeks of effort to set up. So, now everyone's kind of tired and ready, I think, to go back home and eat some leftovers, because all these volunteers have been working long, late nights to get things set up. But yeah, it's great. And it'll run through the end of the calendar year.
How many volunteers are here today? Do you know?
I'm not sure about today, but I know there are dozens key volunteers. And then, you know, as far as setup, tear down, you know, we also get folks from the university, students to come help out. So I think Ken can tell you specific numbers, but I know hundreds of people have helped out over the years.
All right. And I can see that Ken is over here. He's speaking with another member of the media.
He's very popular.
He's very popular tonight, and we are going to get an interview with him here on the Benton County Public Podcast. Thanks for tuning in for this year-end special. Also this hour, we are going to discuss the COVID-19 vaccines that are available right now, which, of course, you can find more information about available vaccines and locations at vaccines.gov. We are also hoping to talk about some of the year-end events going on through Benton County. We're speaking with a couple of volunteers who did help put on this holiday light display. We are also joined by Ken Pastega. Why don't you tell us your names?
I'm Mike Strobridge.
And I'm Dana Strobridge.
What kind of volunteering did you do this year?
Well, my job is the organization of the entire program, so I need to call to set up for the trees that are coming in, and they're donated, getting lights.
How many trees did you have to line up this year?
We only had 75 small trees, and then we have 6 from Schudel. They donate the entrance trees, and then 6 smaller ones. And then Sunrise Tree Farm, the Malones, they donate the large tree that's in the solar barn.
Actually, there's a high level of detail required to make things work. And I first would like to mention, Ken's point that his passion for this is what drew me into it, and how much I appreciate the Pastega family over these years, just like everybody else. It was so easy for me to come and be a volunteer because of that. So I really want to thank the whole family for it. The details are almost endless, it seems. Circuits that need to be addressed, making sure that every light we can possibly think of is working properly. We had many volunteers come and assist with repairs on some of the things that they wouldn't be operating had the volunteers not come and taken their time to make those things work. We've had high school kids, elementary kids. It's just been over the years, fraternities, just over the years, I think, and Ken especially because of his willingness to bring people in and make things happen that way has really kept it alive.
About how many volunteers would you say you worked with this year?
A couple hundred.
I think it's also important to mention Kathleen Hutchinson for also helping with rally volunteers. She's done that for a number of years. So, and again, she came through this year.
And your parents, Ken, started this was it 1981?
Mm-hmm. The display really was a reflection of my childhood. We would go to Mount Shasta, California every year for Christmas, and they had a competitive Christmas display program in the community. And so when Dad decided to do this, he sent an individual that worked for us for 35 years named Ole Brenstall. And there's a plaque here. There's also a plaque for the Strobridge family, too, because Mike's dad gave us the Grinch scene there. And it was out at the Pepsi plant for years, wasn't it?
And you still have the same Grinch?
We still have it, still hanging in there, isn't it, Mike?
It is. He's looking good.
Yeah.
Is it in good condition still?
It is, fortunately. It's been inside.
Many scenes, so the big
So that
dinner.
was kind of fun to have that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so what my dad has sent Ole to Mount Shasta with my mom went down there also. They took pictures of everything, and then what he did is he came back and improved it. So my mom would say, I need whatever character. Maybe it's Tigger or Snow White or the Seven Dwarfs. And she'd draw them out on a piece of plywood. Ole would cut them, and then she would paint them. So originally, almost 100% of the original display she painted. And then when we asked Pepsi to give it back to us, then that was really the community stepped up, so we had an adoption program. Somebody would adopt a character, we'd give them the materials, they'd paint it, and then they had to bring it back by a certain date, and we only had to remind one person to bring it back, and it was about 150 pieces that we used the first year. Then we had work parties out here that built new stands, and it was all put in the ground at Pepsi out in the field. Here it was all pavement and cement, so we had to build stands to hold the characters up. And then we added lights. We made it more relevant for children today by adding superheroes, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Nemo, things that were relevant for young kids today that, weren't so much into Mickey Mouse has been around forever, but, they wanted something that they cherished. And
like the Minions or...
Yeah, exactly. So we tried to, and I'd have my grandkids come out here and I'd say, what would you like out here? One of them wanted, what's the horse there? Unicorn. Yeah. So we went and College Hill painted a unicorn for us. Philomath High School painted characters.
Sweet Home did.
Sweet Home, Corvallis, Crescent Valley. Dana we'd load the characters in the back of her car. She'd take them to all the different schools. I mean, all of Star Wars was Philomath, wasn't it?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Sandy M. Christian did quite a bit also with Nemo.
Yeah, and then who did the superheroes?
Corvallis
High. So the art departments loved this lady because she kept these high school kids busy.
And were these projects they were doing year-round or closer to the holidays?
I would take them about September, and they had to have them back by Halloween.
Yeah, and then we'd put stands under them. We had them cut out. We gave them... Pepsi was a sponsor of the Star Wars. So we had all the stand-up characters in cardboard. So we just had them character, and they just painted them. I mean, they're amazing, aren't they? Yeah. You just walk by them and you said, how exciting is this, these high school kids, to, make something that's here and everybody's enjoying it.
What has been your favorite part of this throughout the years?
Watching the kids go through it. You're burned out, right, Mike? No, I mean, by the day,
we sleep well.
1 year we were still putting it together, and cars were coming through, and we were trying to finish everything. And then these kids are just hanging out of the sides of the cars. They're up the sunroof hanging out, and they are just big smiles. And you go, yeah, it's worth it. You know, it made you feel good. You know, that they would, and they remember it all their lives. We had the Demarest family out here. So these two kids come in. I said, how long have you been out here? One of them says, I started coming out here at 4. And his brother said, and I was 6. And he's probably 6'2", and his brother's pretty tall also. And they said, and they're back this last week with their mom.
How old are they now?
16 and 12. Yeah. So it was fun. And they go, oh, we just love coming out here. You know. I go, well, good. Keep coming back. And I always go around, and Mike does it, Dana, and just thank the kids and the adults for coming out here. And we've had a lot of adults that have continued to come every year, like Randy Hubler. He's been out, he's been every year. And Doug Oxen was here working for a day, and it just goes on and on. And it's like, and Jerry Kasanovic, he was in charge of the sound system. You know, Mike took it over, but he came out this last week and made sure everything worked, you know. And all of us are in our, well, he's not in his 70s. I'm 77. Jerry's like 70, turning 75. Yeah. So it's fun seeing all the personalities come back. But it's the hardest part of it is managing it, and that's what Mike did a great job of this year. Yeah. It's making sure everything works, you know. We have
logistics
a big ladder truck puts the lights up down the middle, and the Christmas tree out in the parking lot, and all these things. It's just, and then we have an individual, Lee Sleeper, that has been here for maybe 5 years, helping us out every year, you know.
So for those who cannot, I mean, we have people listening, but what are we looking at right now in front of us?
Well, you're looking at all the beautiful lights, and the kids just get so excited when they see the lights, and and they take their time. You watch the cars take their time so they can see everything. And what's interesting is cars will go through multiple times. Now, we were lectured about having 53rd Street full of cars. So today, Mike and Lee were out that was yesterday, we're out in the parking lot, so we could get a lot of cars in the parking lot without clogging up 53rd Street and Reservoir Road, you know.
Yeah, traffic is flowing just fine. Yeah. There's no obstruction to 53rd Street from where we're standing. People are just moving through. And during the COVID times, did that affect the operations of this display?
Yeah, 1 year we backed off, and the first year during COVID that we put it back on, everybody was wearing masks out here and was very, very conscious of not infecting anybody and not coming if they had COVID, and it worked out okay.
Well, as you mentioned, volunteers and individuals from the community certainly do their part in making these events come together, but like anything, it really requires a backbone or the glue, and it seems that you have been that for many years for this event, Mr. Pastega.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, my dad he'd go out every night and walk the display and say hi to everybody, and he was so happy that it was a successful thing that made people feel good and excited about the holidays. You know, we've tried to have a little bit of, the religious part of Christmas. You know, there's a major scene in a chapel and things like that, but most of it is just very cheerful characters and the lights and
the pagan balance, lights and such, and the tree imagery.
Yeah,
you know, it just the bottom line is it just brings joy to people to go through it, and Ken mentioned earlier, really gets people in the spirit of what Christmas and the holiday season is about. It's just a great start. And of course, all season people can come through it, and we tend to get people right up to the last day coming through it because they don't like giving it up either.
And what is the last day?
December 31st, yeah. So
another element that has made it really successful is a few years ago we started asking if they could donate canned food. We have gotten 7,000 to 8,000 pounds of food every year.
You're talking about people who've come through,
Canned food.
People who drive through?
Yeah, so we have a food drive. And what it all started with, the Boy Scouts were here, and we were asking them, how's your food drive going? And they go, oh, well, there's less kids in Scouts now, so we're not collecting as much food. I said, how about if we put some bins out there and a sign, and we'll see what happens? And so it's grown to 8,000 pounds of canned food. So we have food banks. What food banks?
Yes, we have South Corvallis Food Bank, Adair Food Pantry, St. Vincent de Paul, Monroe Gleaners, and College Hill High School is helping us. Mm-hmm. So each group has a week to collect the food, and then they distribute.
Mm-hmm.
We are speaking with Ken Pastega, who has been the head organizer of this holiday lights display that is currently on at the Benton County Fairgrounds, and about a dozen years back was up at the Pepsi building on the north end of town near Highway 99 in Conifer, behind the Pepsi building. This is Dan Crall for the Benton County Public Podcast. Ken, we would like to thank you on behalf of Benton County and just the community for being the heart and soul and keeping this alive.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. We've enjoyed it. Yes. I have a lot of grandkids that went through it, and they sparkle along with the rest of the community. Just seeing the lights and all the effort that's gone into this.
If you are a homeowner, landlord, or renter, the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition invites you to a program called Affordable Solar, New Funding Opportunities, on Wednesday, December 13th, from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at the Corvallis Benton County Public Library, which is located at 645 Northwest Monroe Avenue in Corvallis. The Oregon Department of Energy has new cost-saving incentives for installing solar, and 3 panelists will speak briefly about how they can help, followed by audience questions. Speakers and their topics include Kirk Bailey of Abundant Solar discussing what are the solar incentives that make now a notable time to install residential solar. Julie Williams of Seeds for the Soul will talk about how lower-income and middle-income homeowners afford the upfront cost of solar, and Dan Orzech of Oregon Clean Power Co-op will discuss how one can participate in the shift to renewable energy if you're a renter or if your home's roof isn't suitable for solar. Exhibitors will be on hand both before and after the event to talk to attendees and provide personalized guidance on what they can do to make the shift from fossil fuel-powered homes to energy-efficient homes powered by renewable energy. This event is part of the Shift Together campaign, an initiative of the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition's Energy Action Team. The goal of the campaign is to educate, connect, and support all community members with resources and funding as we make the shift to energy efficiency and renewable energy in our work and living spaces. For more information about this event on Wednesday, December 13th at the Benton County Public Library, or for more information about the Shift Together campaign, you can visit sustainablecorvallis.org.
Do you know about fentanyl? Fentanyl is a powerful opioid that has made its way into the illegal drug supply. Fentanyl has no taste or smell and is being sold as common pills or in party drugs. Just a tiny amount can stop your breathing in seconds. Naloxone is a medication to reverse opioid overdose and can help save lives. It is available at no cost to certain individuals. Benton County Health Department wants everyone to learn more about fentanyl, naloxone, and ways to stay safe. You can type Fentanyl Aware Benton County into your search engine to learn more. That's FENTANYL in Benton County.
Thanks for joining us for this year-end edition of the Benton County Public Podcast. My name is Dan Crall. I'm the host and producer of this podcast. And in this next portion of the show, we're going to visit with Cindy DeAngelilo, RN, who is a public health nurse and the Immunization Program Coordinator for the Benton County Health Department. Thanks for joining us today on the Benton County Public Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start off by talking about some of what you do with the Benton County Health Department. I understand you provide a safety net vaccination clinic in the health department.
Correct. So we provide vaccinations to really anybody. Our priority is for people who do not have a medical provider or don't have insurance where they cannot get vaccinated at a retail pharmacy. So we do fill that gap, although we do vaccinate anybody who needs it and can't get it elsewhere.
But it's generally underserved populations?
It is. I do some vaccinations out in the community to populations who don't have access, for instance, at community outreach. At the unhoused service centers, at the Benton County Jail. So I provide vaccines out in the community as well.
So what does it look like when you go to the jail?
So I work really closely with the jail nurse, and she lets me know when we have adults in custody who need a specific vaccine. I go pretty much every year during flu season and also provide COVID vaccines there, as well as other vaccines that the adults in custody are in need of. So we work together, and I go to the jail and provide those vaccines to those who want them.
During COVID times, say in 2020, were there a lot of people who were hesitant, or would you say it was folks were maybe more eager, somewhere in the middle?
It really depends on the individual. Certainly there are people who are hesitant to accept vaccines in all populations, anywhere I go. Yeah, but in general, most people do want the vaccine and they do want to have access to it.
And I understand you also oversee the immunization programs at Benton and Lynn Community Health Centers?
Yes, we have 6 community health centers. And so as my role in public health, it is my responsibility to oversee those immunization programs, be the clinical expertise for them and private providers in the community as well, to make sure that there's access to vaccines and to make sure that vaccines are handled safely as well, so that the community can have trust that the vaccine that they're getting has been handled well and is being given appropriately.
Do you feel like overall the access then for most people in Benton County is good if they wish to get a vaccine?
I do. There are times when it's been difficult, the height of COVID, when a new vaccine comes out, the very beginning of influenza season when everybody wants it all at once. That's a little difficult, and not everybody can get their vaccine on the same day. So, but yes, in general, access to vaccinations in Benton County is excellent through our primary care providers, through our retail pharmacies, and our community health centers and the health department.
As of early December of 2023, are there any significant wait times?
Right now it's good, but when the newest COVID vaccine came out, the supply was low and slow. And pharmacies got it first, of course, but they got about 10% of what they asked for. So it was very difficult for people who wanted to get vaccinated right away. Sometimes there was a 3 to 4 week wait to get an appointment for a vaccine. Now that's all cleared up and people can get in usually same week.
When was the new vaccine issued?
Into September, early October.
And was that just true, those long wait times, was that just true in Benton County, or was that kind of a statewide concern?
Nationwide. Absolutely everywhere.
But we're all caught up as of early December.
Yeah, we're doing very well with access. Yeah.
And so that our listeners can be on the same page, can you describe how vaccines work and specifically the serious health consequences that are prevented with vaccinations?
Yes, absolutely. So your body's own immune system builds, if you will, your own organic internal medicine chest. You receive a vaccination that's synthetic or inactivated, and that teaches your immune system to identify and create an antibody to a serious infection. The vaccine can't cause disease. It's only strong enough to trigger your immune system to build its own antibody. Then when you're exposed to that infection, whether it's a virus or a bacteria, your immune system's ready and it can deactivate that infection. In this way, you don't have to take the risk of serious consequences from infections, death, hospitalization, long-term disabilities. I can tell you, in the course of my 45-year career in healthcare, I have personally seen infants on a respirator because they got pertussis, which is whooping cough. I've seen a child die of chickenpox. The child was healthy before they got chickenpox, and they died. I've seen a patient with such severe tetanus, which causes muscle spasms, that bones were broken. They had muscle spasms that caused fractures. I've seen infants born with congenital defects, blind, deaf, brain damage, due to the mother getting rubella when she was pregnant. I've seen people who are deaf because of mumps. I've seen teens with brain damage and amputated legs because they got meningococcal disease. Some of them died. I've seen a child die of influenza. There are vaccines to prevent all of these diseases and their severe consequences. We don't have vaccines for mild, self-limited illnesses. We just vaccinate for the infections that cause high mortality and morbidity. This is the best way to help protect you and your family from these serious diseases and terrible consequences.
Back around 2020, when COVID-19 became a new thing to the public, there was a lot of skepticism that there were adverse reactions to the vaccine. As a health specialist, have you ever witnessed any?
Mild reactions is all I have seen with the COVID vaccine here.
What kind of reactions?
It's normal to have a response to a vaccine. So that means your immune response is happening and you feel it. And so that might be redness and swelling at the site of the injection. That's an immune response happening right there. Or you feel tired, achy, run down. You may get some chills. You may have a fever. Those are all normal responses to a vaccine. A reaction is more like an allergic reaction or some severe health consequence. It's difficult to know if it was caused by the vaccine or just something that was going to happen anyway. But I do, and most medical professionals do, follow the data and we follow the reports, the safety reports on all vaccinations to know, are there early signs? For instance, we learned through the course of vaccination that young adolescent males had a higher risk for myopericarditis, inflammation of the heart tissue. We also know that the rate of myocarditis is very high in that group from natural infections. Going back to things that I've observed in my career, I once took care of a young man who had very serious heart damage due to influenza. So we know that these things happen normally after infections. And so it makes sense that very rarely, sometimes, those same things are going to happen after a vaccination. But they're rare, and they happen. You're much less likely to have a bad outcome from a vaccine than you are from the natural infection.
With the science being where it is now, and that we've had, 3 years to try out the vaccines, or almost 3 years to try out the vaccines and see how they've worked, how does that relate to public confidence For instance, when it's time to get a booster, do they feel confident in getting that, or does it often require some kind of persuading?
I think overall, the community has faith in vaccinations and they have faith in the medical system, but that's not everybody. And there are brilliant people who have concerns about anything medical, including vaccinations. And at that point, it is more an issue of providing unbiased information about effectiveness and safety, how vaccines work. I can talk to you about how vaccines are authorized and monitored for safety. So the FDA regulates vaccines to make sure they're safe and effective. The CDC provides clinical guidance for vaccine use. So both of these advisory boards are staffed by large panels of medical experts whose singular goal in their career is to protect and preserve human life, then the quality of human life. Before a vaccine can be approved, it goes through extensive testing to show that it's safe and it's effective and that the benefits outweigh the risks. There are 4 levels of clinical trials. So once a vaccine is approved by the FDA, the CDC both continue to monitor its safety through multiple systems. There is public reporting, 2 systems for public reporting. There is mandatory reporting for providers when there is even a hint of an adverse reaction to a vaccine that has to be reported. There is de-identified collated data from medical records from 190 million people. So all of these things, all of these systems work together to monitor the safety of vaccines, and it goes on. It doesn't stop once a vaccine is regulated. I believe that vaccines are the most monitored and regulated medical intervention there is in the United States.
So far with the COVID vaccines, have there been any recalls or otherwise pulling back of certain vaccines?
Yeah, sure. So you may remember the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine.
Early on,
yeah. It was one that was highly sought after at the beginning because it was a 1 dose. You didn't have to have multiple doses. It was effective, and it was a effective and safe vaccine. However, the FDA and the CDC recommended the mRNA vaccines above it, the Pfizer and the Moderna brand vaccines that were mRNA based, as well as the Novavax, which is a different type of COVID vaccine, because there was a higher risk of blood clots with the J&J vaccine. It was low, it was rare, but it was still different from the other vaccines. So
And wasn't it blood clots in the legs, if I remember correctly?
For the most part, yes. Yeah. So those kind of blood clots can happen with a natural infection as well. However, the rate of that happening with vaccinated people was higher than that with the other types of COVID vaccines. So they decided to recommend it only to those who could not get an mRNA vaccine.
We're speaking with Cindy DeAngelilo, RN. She is a public health nurse and the Immunization Program Coordinator for the Benton County Health Department. She has kindly joined us today on the year-end edition of the Benton County Public Podcast, and we are talking about the latest in the flu season, as well as COVID vaccines. And I should ask, as of early December 2023, how would you rate the flu and COVID season shaping out in Benton County?
Oh, sure. Currently in Oregon, we get data that is Oregon-based. We don't necessarily get this great data just for Benton County. So I'm going to share with you a little of both. So in Oregon, influenza cases are low compared to the rest of the nation, but they are on the rise. We can measure that by the percentage of positive flu tests. So right now, those are around 2% in Oregon. About 2% of the people who are getting tested for influenza are having a positive test. That is a little increase from the week before, and that's expected in the annual flu season. And then also wastewater surveillance in Benton County. That is, it's actually Corvallis specific because it comes from the city septic system. So that wastewater surveillance shows low levels of influenza at this time. So if you've not had your flu vaccine, now is really the time to do that. It takes about 2 weeks to develop robust immunity. So we're seeing this rise across the state, and now is the time to get your flu vaccine. And then for COVID surveillance, this is, again, all Oregon data. Most testing's done at home and not reported to the state like it was at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. Of the voluntary COVID test reporting, 8.5% in Oregon are positive. And that's down from about 15% in September. Then the Corvallis wastewater surveillance in Benton County shows low to moderate levels of COVID, and we're at a plateau. It really hasn't changed much in the last month.
So right now, where are we at as far as early December of 2023 with COVID-related hospitalizations?
Again, this is specific to all of Oregon, and there isn't really a seasonal trend as we see with influenza. Hospitalizations in Oregon are rising from about 1.4 per 100,000 people to 6.8 per 100,000 people in September. So the 1.4 was June, and the 6.8 is September. In Oregon, we have lost about 9,000 of our residents to COVID since the beginning of the pandemic. And so that is deaths with COVID reported as the primary cause of death or a contributing factor to the death. Right now, the death rate from COVID in Oregon is measured week by week. And so our last data was 10 people were lost in a week. At our peak, we experienced deaths on the 256 deaths in 1 week of October of 2021, 196 deaths a week in January of 22. So the good news is that we're down, but the bad news is people are still dying of COVID.
Are these new strains weaker then?
We know that all viruses do that. They mutate, and some of the strains can be really virulent and some not so much. So what we're seeing with the newest strains are that they do tend to not be as severe. They tend to not cause as many hospitalizations and deaths as those that we were seeing there in 21 and 22.
We are speaking with Cindy DeAngelilo, RN. She's a public health nurse and the Immunization Program Coordinator for the Benton County Health Department. You're listening to the Benton County Public Podcast. We'll be back in a moment.
It's everyone's responsibility to help prevent human-caused wildfires. It's important to practice basic wildfire safety while visiting Oregon's scenic areas and have awareness of weather conditions, restrictions, and wildfire prevention activities around the state. Prepare your home by creating defensible space. Help prevent wildfires when you're out and about, at home, or at work. Have an emergency plan and know your evacuation levels. Sign up for local emergency alerts and warnings at oralert.gov. And learn more about how to prevent wildfire at keeporegongreen.org.
You're listening to the Benton County Public Podcast. This is Dan Crall, and I am joined by Cindy DeAngelilo, RN, a public health nurse, also the Immunization Program Coordinator for the Benton County Health Department. And she's joined us here on the Benton County Public Podcast. Since we've been discussing vaccines and the flu shot, I should ask, what are some of the locations where people in Benton County can go?
Absolutely. So people can go to their primary care provider, their clinic, or their doctor's office. They can go to a retail pharmacy. Also, SamCare Express has vaccination appointments, or the health department for both their COVID and their flu vaccines. You can do an internet search of local pharmacies and actually schedule your own appointment online rather than calling them, or they can call their primary care provider or the health department to schedule those appointments.
In general, if somebody were going to their primary care provider in the next few weeks for just a general checkup, can they generally get the vaccine the same day if they just ask?
Absolutely. In fact, in general, most providers will ask you when you are there, how about getting the vaccines that you're due for today as well?
What is the cost of this latest vaccine?
Well, it ranges about $140 to $180 per dose, but most insurance companies, including Medicare and Medicaid, are covering the vaccines, whether it's the flu or the COVID.
The full cost?
Yes, the full cost. There are also programs that will pay for vaccines for people without insurance. So the Bridge Access is a federal program that provides no-cost COVID vaccines for adults without health insurance. Those Bridge Access vaccines are available at the health department. There's also the Vaccines for Children's program, which has been around almost 20 years, which provides no-cost vaccines, including COVID, and every vaccine recommended for children who are 18 and under. Any recommended vaccine, including their flu and their COVID, if the child does not have health insurance, is completely no cost to the family. There are also no-cost influenza vaccines for adults who are uninsured available at the health department.
One of the things I personally found the most unusual about COVID, not that I study viruses, but you really couldn't tell who it was going to hit really hard and who it wouldn't. There were people who had very good health history, no indication that they would be especially vulnerable, and then COVID changed their entire world.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad you said that. Because immunity wanes over time, the recommendation is for all people 6 months and over to get the new 23-24 COVID vaccine, unless, of course, there's a specific medical reason or contraindication to vaccination, in which case they should have an evaluation with their medical provider for advice about that. But we do know that healthy, active people of all ages can become very, very sick from a COVID infection. In addition to just the disruption of their daily life, work, and school, people can suffer some very severe long-term consequences, fatigue and cognitive changes from COVID. Elders and people with elevated risk factors, pregnant people, small children are all vulnerable to severe infection as well. So you're right, and your experience is true, that a perfectly healthy person can get a virus that is mild to somebody else, but it can kill them.
What if you got the vaccines on the first year and then maybe the second year didn't get a booster, but you got COVID? Would that be itself like getting a booster if you were to get COVID a second time?
In some ways, yes. What we can see is that immunity from a COVID infection generally lasts about 90 days, a good robust immunity for about 90 days. After that, it too does wane. So like other vaccines, sometimes boosters are required. The influenza changes every year. We need a new vaccine for that every year. Tetanus, you get a booster every 10 years because your immunity wanes from that as well. Some vaccines offer lifelong protection. Hepatitis B, hepatitis A are some of those. But with COVID, we know that your immunity wanes.
Is polio one of those vaccines that you only get one time?
Polio is a series of vaccinations that we generally give in childhood, and we do not need to repeat once they've had that primary series, unless they're going into an area in the world where there is natural polio transmission, in which case we will give a booster.
Similar to like malaria?
Absolutely, yeah.
My final question for you today is, in addition to the vaccines and boosters, is there anything else that the county health department would recommend for overall wellness this season?
Yes, absolutely, of course. Maintain your healthy and your active lifestyle, eat a nutritious diet, and of course get plenty of fresh air. Avoid large crowds during the respiratory season, which is now. Consider wearing a mask at crowded indoor spaces. Keep your distance from people who have respiratory symptoms. Put on a mask if you need to. And very importantly, you yourself, stay home when you're sick. Also, now is the time to get your children and your teens caught up on their routine vaccinations as well. Call your primary care provider to schedule. Do not wait to receive a letter from your school or your child care informing you their children are excluded from attending. Schedule those vaccine appointments now. Get everybody caught up and protected.
We've been speaking with Cindy DeAngelilo, RN. She is a public health nurse, also the Immunization Program Coordinator at the Benton County Health Department. I'd like to thank you again for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Just a reminder that you can see a calendar of events by going to co.benton.or.us and click on Calendar. There you can see schedules for meetings such as the Board of Commissioners, the Hope Advisory Committee, Community Health Center's Board of Directors meeting, and in January, events such as the Benton County Event Center and Fairgrounds Board of Directors meeting. You can find events such as this listed on the calendar at co.benton.or.us. To find out more about events taking place at the County Fairgrounds, you can go to bceventcentercorvallis.net. There you can view details of various 4-H meetings, the Fair Board meeting, and events next year, such as the Friends of the Corvallis Benton County Public Library sale in late April. That's all at bceventcentercorvallis.net. If you're looking to stay informed and connected in Benton County with accurate and timely local government information, you're invited to sign up for Flash Alert, which is a direct link to crucial updates, including Benton County media releases. There is more information online at flashalert.net/ID/BentonCOGOV. If you are interested in subscribing to Benton County's e-newsletter for email updates, you can go to co.benton.or.us, and you can follow at BentonCOGov on social media. If you are interested in a career with Benton County, some of the jobs posted in December of 2023 include Assistant County Administrator, Corrections Deputy, Deputy District Attorney, and Family Nurse Practitioner, among others. You can visit co.benton.or.us and click on Careers for more information. We'd like to thank you again for joining us on this year-end edition of the Benton County Public Podcast. Our executive producer is Corey Grogan. We'd like to thank Ken Pastega, Tommy Douglas, Mike and Dana Strobridge, Cindy DeAngelilo, RN, and our theme music was written and performed by Doug Sowers. We'll conclude today with a holiday tune by Wild Hog Gumbo. You may recognize their signature sound as played at the Corvallis Farmers Market during the spring, summer, and fall months. This is a song called Santa's Up to Date, written by Sid Beam and performed by Wild Hog Gumbo of Corvallis. And speaking of the farmers market, you can check their winter indoor schedule at locallygrown.org. You've been listening to Episode 7 of the Benton County Public Podcast. I'm your host and producer, Dan Crall.
right then. 1, 2, 3. Santa shaved his beard today, threw that old red suit away, got himself a timeshare at the shore. He's been trimming off the weight, don't put so much on his plate, the reindeer couldn't take it anymore. Toys are made in China now, he's old friends with Chairman Mao, they make stuff for cheaper than the elves. He got a new HD TV and high-speed internet for free. Elves will have to take care of themselves. Now Santa's up today, time to incorporate. He got a fancy new website, he's taking orders day and night. Now Santa's up today. Got himself tattooed today, custom painted hybrid sleigh. Santa's going green instead of red. Now he's got a lobbyist helping him update his list. Won't get any toys containing lead. Chimneys now are just a joke, way too much unhealthy smoke. Santa's keeping his scene nice and clean. He keeps Alcor informed just how much the polls have won. He gets around if you know what I mean. Now Santa's up today, don't underestimate. He knows the way you do, his database includes you too. Now Santa's up today. He's up today, find the North Pole. Now Santa's up today. He's off in Tahiti. Now Santa's